What's up, everybody? Ryan Thomas on the Thomas Take Sports podcast, and if you can't tell, I got a little bit of a hesitation with this one because the season is not over yet. The baseball season is not done, but from the outside looking in, there's still a lot of baseball left to be played, and people will look at the headline of this show and they'll say to me, Ryan, you're giving up on the Red Sox? That's your squad, man. You can't give up on your team just yet. Well, I can tell you the team last year and the team they have this year are two completely different teams. And with the exception of Joe Kelly and Craig Kimbrell and Blake Swihart and Eduardo Nunez, this Boston Red Sox team is very similar to the Boston Red Sox. It literally is the same team that they had last season. He got to see the Red Sox win 2 World Series titles. I, on the other hand, as a 27-year-old man, have had the honor of seeing 4 World Series titles with the Boston Red Sox. So I can't just get mad and say they need to do this, say they need to do that. But I easily can. It's not that I don't want to. It's just I feel a little bit wrong in doing this. But at the same time, my grandpa of all people would understand that I have a moral obligation to you, the viewers, to you, the listeners, on the Thomas Take Sports podcast, to lay down the law as to why the Boston Red Sox went from hero to zero. And the 2018 season, for my money, I am a true baseball purist. Everyone that knows me, all the guys, shout out to a lot of the guys I talk baseball with on Facebook, Ronnie Smith, good friend of mine, Zach Troutwine, Greg Blanding, guys from my hometown of Lockport, New York. When I post something, they comment on it, and rightfully so. They should. I expect that. I want that. I love that. Whether they agree with me or disagree with me, I love that. And they know, though, that I'm a baseball purist. I am a diehard Boston Red Sox fan. But they know that I will tell it like it is, whether it's my team I'm talking about or whether it's another team that I'm talking about. And with the Boston Red Sox in my lifetime, there has been very few teams that have been that dominant in a single season like the Red Sox were last year. They had the best record in baseball practically throughout the entire season in a 162-game season. Just to put this in perspective for everybody, from April to the playoffs, they had the best record in baseball. At this point last year on my Facebook look back, they were 68-30. Now as I look at their record, now as I go into their record, they are 51-44. They are 10 games outside of the AL East division. The Yankees, who everyone is quick to bow down to, and I'll get to that a little bit later, but the Yankees are 60-33. No team at this point in the AL has 68 wins. No team in the NL has 68 wins. Not even the Los Angeles Dodgers, who have been one of the best franchises in recent memory in sports, albeit they've lost the last 2 World Series, but typical Buffalo Bills adage, they at least made it to those 2 straight World Series championship meetings, losing to the Astros and to the Red Sox, obviously, respectively. So that just goes to show you that puts things in perspective, the dominance of this Boston Red Sox team. Now, the real question is, what went wrong? And I've hinted at that. What went wrong being that this team is virtually the same team that it was last season, with the exception of a couple players walking out the door that were asking for too much money, guys like Joe Kelly, guys like Craig Kimbrell. Those decisions to let those guys go on the count of president of the Boston Red Sox, Dave Dombrowski, were not dumb decisions. At some points, I've called Dave Dombrowski Dave Dombrowski, and I can't do that right now because I don't think the reason the Boston Red Sox are where they are is because of him. I think it isn't. I don't think it's because of Alex Cora. I truly believe that there are a lot of reasons as to why Boston is where they are. And it's not because they let go of Craig Kimbrell. It's not because they let go of Joe Kelly. Kimbrell, one of the best closers in the game in recent memory, probably the best closer in the game. Arguably, it's debatable. There's some really good ones. But they let Craig Kimbrell go. They didn't want to pay him the $16, $17 million a year, and I get that. They let Joe Kelly walk, the setup man. They didn't want to pay him what the Dodgers paid him. I get that. It's not worth it. Those guys are not worth that much money. But when you choose not to pay a player, the next step is to replace that player. Bring in someone else. And the Boston Red Sox didn't do that. They did not do that. They looked at who they already had and said, what player could we put in this position to fill this role? And largely it's due to the fact that there was not a guy out there that was as available, as dominant as Craig Kimbrell. There was not a setup man out there that was as dominant as Joe Kelly was in October. There just wasn't. The one guy that they could have got that I will throw out there is Adam Ottavino. That's one guy. One guy. And he went to the Yankees. Now, he went to the Yankees for a few reasons. They paid him, obviously. And Adam Ottavino doesn't have to be the man in the Yankee Stadium 81 games a year. He doesn't have to be the guy that has to run out of the bullpen like Mariano did for all those years at the old Yankee Stadium and the new Yankee Stadium. That's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. And the only guy that can really do that is who I feel is one of the other great closers in the game outside of Craig Kimbrell, and that's Aroldis Chapman. So Adam Ottavino gets to play second fiddle, third fiddle to Aroldis Chapman in New York, which was better for him. He gets paid closer money to not be a closer. The Red Sox were not paying a reliever closer money. They're paying a closer money. I do not disagree with that thought process. Because you know and I know that Aroldis Chapman is highly overpaid, and there's times where he blows saves quite often, and that is not good. But this bullpen of the Boston Red Sox is literally the thorn in their side. There have been 18, 19 games that have been blown by this bullpen. Now, as I said, last year there were 68 and 33, 68 and 30 at this point last year, and now they're 51 and 44. And there's statistics out there that lend to the fact that they have blown 15, 16 saves, 17, 18 saves. Let's just say they had half of those. Let's just say they had 8 of those. Let's just say they had 9 of those. Boys and girls, they'd be right on top, tied in the AL East with the New York Yankees. It's a huge difference. It's a huge, huge, huge difference. And it pains me to say it, but there have been so many other distractions out there for the Boston Red Sox than what is necessary. Namely, the fact that you have a lot of players on this team making a lot of money. The Red Sox, I believe, as it stands, just might have the highest payroll in the entire league. But they also have a solid foundation. They also have Mookie Betts. They also have players that are great players. But with that comes question marks. As I just said, Mookie Betts, and sorry I got distracted because I'm looking something up here, but as I said with Mookie Betts, he's somebody that they do not know whether or not they're going to bring him back or not. as of now, I have a lot of reasons to say that because he was not extended. He has not been extended. But Chris Sale has. Chris Sale has been extended, and Mookie Betts hasn't. Now, Chris Sale last year was the most dominant pitcher in the majors. He was somebody that truly astonished me as a baseball fan. But giving Chris Sale a 5-year deal after a season in which his arm was about to fall off, that in itself was not a smart move. You didn't have to give him this extension. He already had the years left on his deal, a year left. Have him finish out this season and then go from there. But instead, they extended him and gave him all this money and overpaid him and did all that. And that's step one as to why I think they are where they are. I think the team knew that Chris Sale was where he was at, barely pitched in spring training, barely was available, and he comes out of the gate. He looked like garbage. He looked like one of the worst pitchers in the league. Worse than that, he looked like he couldn't pitch, period. Not just one of the worst pitchers in the majors, one of the worst, not even capable of pitching. Whether it be MLB, AAA, AA, single A, his arm was shot. Velocity drops, just completely done for. So that was how I saw that. And that was really, really frustrating for me because I know where they train, Fort Myers, Florida. Chris Sale's not there, and makes me think to myself, well, Chris Sale's not pitching today. Chris Sale's, what's going on with Chris Sale? Then, well, we're not going to pitch him because we want to do an introductory press conference as to his 5-year gazillion-dollar deal. Let's stop smelling the roses. And that's a little bit of it, too. They were the most dominant team in recent memory for a single season. In this decade, I believe, from 2010 on, the 2018 Boston Red Sox were the most dominant team in a single season. I don't think that can be debated, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan, obviously. I'm saying that because I am a baseball purist. I know the teams that are dominant. I know the players very well. And they did the unthinkable last year. They were the best team in baseball from April to October. That never happens. Not in this generation. But it excites me that they are where they are in certain ways because it's painfully obvious that they know what they need. What scares me is you have players like Andrew Benintendi who have just looked lost this season. You have breakout players like Rafael Devers, who I said on this podcast would break out eventually. Rafael Devers would break out this season. This was the year that he'd do it, and he's done it. He's a true star, superstar. He's going to be in Boston for a long time. Hopefully. I said that about Mookie Betts. I don't know if Mookie Betts is going to be around. JD Martinez, he's got an opt-out. I don't know if he's going to be around. And maybe that's okay. Because when you have JD Martinez making $20 million, when you got Chris Sale making 30 and David Price making 35, oh, God. You can use that money for a lot of other players and beef up this team. Play some money ball, Boston. But they never have, and they never will. Actually, they did. Can't say they never have. Actually, they did, because when they were winning in 04, they weren't paying guys, big money like they are now. Then again, nobody really was in the sport outside of the Yankees. So there's a lot to take from this podcast, and people are really shocked that I'm saying these things about my team. But I have to say them, because I have to acknowledge that, yes, although I am a Boston Red Sox fan, they have just really it's been a rough year. I don't know if this team is going to make playoffs. And you can tell that I'm a loss for words because that was my next few words. I don't know if this team is going to make the playoffs. I hope I'm wrong, but it's not looking good. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take. Follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take as well. Like the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page as well. Subscribe to YouTube. Subscribe to Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to Spotify. Thank you, and good night.